Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson, here on the magnificent Monday edition of the Yard. Hope you're having a good week. It's a busy week here at Mission Control. I have prepared you guys. I will be leaving for New Mexico. Again, hopefully it's the last trip I ever have to make to New Mexico. I may get miserable next month and decide to go, but going to be meeting her in Nashville at some point next month, and then she'll be home. And your good friend and host will be quite happy about that. But I'll be out there on Friday. So again, a programming note, 4 work days left in the week for me. I'll be recording 3 of those 4. So we'll record today, Wednesday, and then Thursday night. And so we'll get moving Friday. And then I will bring my stuff with me. The plan is to record Sunday night or Monday while I'm out there. So we'll see how things go. She sleeps a lot later than me. So the plan is probably Monday morning I'll get up and record you guys a show. So again, that's your programming note for this week and the first part of next week, and then I'll be back, and then we'll have a lot to talk about. Guys, we're like a month away from college baseball season. Did it sneak up on you? I'm ready. I'm absolutely ready. I'm ready to see the new look Bulldogs. I believe we're going to be a very good team this year. Eager to see how we can pitch it. That's going to determine a lot. I mean, offensively last year we were kind of up and down at times. I think we're going to be a much better offensive team this year. We'll miss R.J. Yeager, of course, and Logan Tanner, Cam James, the whole crew there. Landon Sims, of course. But the reality of it is we're Mississippi State. We don't rebuild, we reload. Last year is an anomaly for us. And that's what I suspect is you're going to see this year as Mississippi State right back in the mix for the hosting discussion. How good we can be will depend on the pitching staff. I think we're going to be a lot better on the back end. That was really the issue last year. Talking to Scott Foxhall, who talks about having some guys go out there and get you 3 outs, and then you pass off to the next guy. I mean, you look at what we did in 2021. That's what made us so successful. That's what gave us so much confidence in the bullpen. If you could have a starter get you through the order twice, maybe get to the 5th inning, you felt really good about life because you knew you had enough arms on the back end to nail that thing down. Proved to be some of the best arms in the country. So I don't know if we're going to be able to make that same claim this year, but I think we're going to follow that same model. Let's thank our friends at Bulldog Burger Company. I had Bulldog Burger Company for lunch. I had the Sloppy Joe sliders with mac and cheese as the side. I'm not sure what Ian had. I know that it was a burger and fries. He likes that Freshman 15, which was the second burger I ever had at Bulldog Burger Company years ago. Had the Bulldog first because I wasn't quite ready to kind of get off the beaten path. It was good. It was great. Kept me coming back. They weren't even sponsoring the show yet. And I was like, you know what? I like this place. I like the atmosphere. I like the ambiance. I like the quality of the food. I like the price that I pay. I like the size of the portions. So they hooked me in long before we hooked them in. So go by and check them out. 3 great locations to serve you. University Drive in Stark Vegas with that great new patio area. Lake Harbor Drive in the Ridge and Flowwood area. And, of course, Gloucester Street there in Tupelo, which is a fabulous location. If you hadn't been by and frequented that, let me encourage you. Maybe you're doing business in Tupelo and you're not quite sure what to get. Bulldog Burger Company can get you taken care of. Get that chocolate shake to go, and as always, get the spring rolls as your appetizer. They will make you and everybody around you better looking. I've had so many people that have said, Steve, I'm willing to give a testimonial to this. I was just a very average-looking person, but now after regularly eating the spring rolls, I have become a very beautiful human being. Can happen for you too. It's in writing, so you know it's true. Check the menu next time you're in town. Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet. M-E-A-T. All right, let's open the show and talk a little basketball. Kind of a mixed bag weekend for us, right? It's just kind of the reality of all that stuff. I mean, it's, here's the thing, and I've said this before, and we'll say it again. I have no doubt about Chris Jans. Zero doubt about Chris Jans. The level of effort that he's getting from this team is outstanding. We're not getting the wins we want. A lot of that's got to do with the personnel that we have, and that's not a criticism. But the reality of it is we just don't have enough shooters. Got a couple guys that can swing it pretty good, but we don't have enough. And so then all of a sudden, people begin to kind of shade to that side, right? All of a sudden, they're going to make somebody else beat you. It almost makes you wonder what this team could look like with Iverson Molinar. If you had like one prolific scorer that could keep everybody honest. We drop a tough game on the road against Auburn over the weekend. 9,121 Plainsman fans attended. Some of you guys were there. Not a lot of you, but some. We didn't get off to a great start, but we ended up kind of figuring some things out. And I think this game may be a microcosm of our season, that we'll kind of scuffle a little bit. We'll get some things figured out offensively, and maybe we come up a little short of where we want to be. But I think this year is going to be a building block for a bigger future. I just encourage you, again, remain patient with this. And most of you have. I mean, really, you have. I mean, you get frustrated when we lose, but I think our fans have done a good job kind of understanding the situation for kind of what it is. But, yeah, we didn't get off to a good start. I mean, you look up there after, at the under 12 timeout, and it's 15-8 Auburn, and it just felt like we couldn't do anything. We just couldn't do anything. Like, no matter what we did, it seems like we just could not narrow the gap. You look up under 9 there, and we're down 10, 22-12. And again, it's like same story, different, opponent. We just simply can't put the ball in the basket. State goes on a little bit of a run. We cut it to 6, gets all the way down to 4 with just over 5 minutes to play in the first half. And you're like, okay, well, now all of a sudden we're making a game of this thing. At the 4-minute mark, State's down 25-23, and Jalen Williams misses a three-pointer for Auburn. We got a chance to pull even here. We don't. We go a little bit cold. Nobody scores until the final minute of the half, and that's Auburn. It stretches it back out to 8 points. So we're in it at the break and had a chance to make it much more competitive. But considering how poorly we shot it in that first half, the fact that we're within single digits – it's a pretty big accomplishment. Not that we're looking for moral victories, but you start thinking, if we could just figure some things out offensively, we got a chance here, because defensively we're giving them some trouble. They come right back out and go right back to work, take it out to 10. And then I guess right at the 60-minute mark, we're only down 6. And then Jalen Williams, again, with a 3 perimeter defense at times is a little bit of a challenge for State. The lead is 10 with 14:31 to go. And then with 13 minutes, it is a 13-point game, and you're thinking this thing is over. We're completely out of it. But we didn't quit. We absolutely didn't quit. We just kept fighting and fighting and fighting. We get it back down to 8 at 11:25 to go. And then we pulled to within 5. At the 9-minute mark, it is a 50-45 game. And then we get a stop. Allen Flanagan misses a 3. We get the ball there, and actually pulled down a couple of offensive rebounds. We have 3 chances here at the basket, 2 of them 3-point shots. We didn't complete any of them, as you know. They go up again, and next thing you know, we pull within 5 again. And then right at the 7-minute mark, they take it back out to 10, and it felt like that we were kind of running out of gas here. But DJ Jeffries makes a free throw. Next thing you know, it's a 5-point game with 5 minutes to play. And it's like, if we could just get a couple of stops here and convert on the other end, we have an opportunity to win this game. 2.5 minutes to go. Shaquille Moore steps to the line to shoot 2. We make the first one. It is a 4-point game. And you start thinking, are we going to go out here and steal this thing? Well, Wendell Green Jr. says, Bulldogs, no, you're not. He rams home a 3 to take it back out to 7. And from there, it pretty much stayed there. I guess it went out to 10 in the final minute. But at this point, there was not much, not much trepidation or anxiety about who was going to win the ball game. We gave it a good run. We didn't win. And it's frustrating because we're 1-4. And it's not that we're a bad team. We just don't have enough offensive pieces to make these games competitive. Tolu Smith, one of his better games of the conference schedule. I mean, really a great game, a double-double for him. 20 points, 10 rebounds. And there was still some other opportunities. I mean, he turned the ball over a couple times, put the ball on the floor when he shouldn't have to, but 8 of 13 from the floor, 4 of 6 from the line. We actually shot free throws really, really well. 21 of 28, one of our better nights from the charity stripe all year. Deshaun Davis, 11 of 13. Need to get that guy to the line more often, right? 11 of his 13 points come at the free throw line. And that's really why the game remained close, is because State was able to knock down their free throws. DJ Jeffries, even 4 of 5, a double-digit score for him. Bulldogs have 3 double-digit scores with Smith, Davis, and Jeffries. Cam Matthews, again, doing a lot of the stuff that doesn't show up in the box score, but also a nice contribution from him. 3 of 4 from the floor, 1 of 2 from the line, pulled down 5 rebounds, 7 points for him. If we can get that stat line from him, we're going to be in most ball games. Eric Reed Jr., 19 minutes of action, did not make a shot, did not score a point. That can't happen. Eric Reed's got to be able to make some plays for us. Shaquille Moore comes off the bench and actually plays more minutes than Reed, 7 points, and he's not scared to shoot it. 10 attempts on the night and just 3. But the Bulldogs, the difference in this ball game, we're 0 of 18 from 3. They're 11 from 25. And it ends up being, a 6-point game. You make a couple of those baskets or you defend a couple, it's a different conversation today. Bulldogs pull down 38 rebounds, out-rebound the Tigers, who had just 32. And again, State doing a great job getting to the line and then defending without fouling. Just 13 free throws on the night for Auburn, and a couple of those were a little bit, questionable, shall we say. And there's probably some questionable calls the other way that maybe some fouls should have been called and weren't called. But, again, a good job for us to defend aggressively without getting into foul trouble. We actually fouled Jalen Williams out of the game for Auburn and then put Johnny Broome with 4. And he had to sit some late in the ball game when we start making our run. Of course, they have to get him back up and have him play kind of within control. But I thought State did a good job. Johnny Broome just 6 points on the night. That's a good effort. Wendell Green with 17, Alan Flanagan for 10. Of course, that's the son of former Bulldog assistant Wes Flanagan. But in the first half of this ball game, Mississippi State shoots 37%. Excuse me, that's total. 39% in the first half and 35% in the second half. And again, 0 for 18. 0 for 6 from 3 in the first half, 0 from 12 in the second half. And it's like we got pretty deliberate, I guess, trying to score from outside late in the ball game, which led to some one-and-dones for us. But, Auburn, not a great team. They're a top 25 team. They're better than us, but they're not much better than us. And this could be a game, obviously, that if we had a chance to get the return trip, we won't see them again this year unless we see them in the tournament. But I feel like if we played them on a neutral floor, perhaps in our gym, you got a chance to get them. And so I think it's a good measuring stick. But the reality of it is we're 12-5 now and 1-4 in the league. And things don't get any easier for your Bulldogs. Of course, we're back in Humphrey Coliseum tomorrow night. It's a 6 p.m. tip. That'll be on ESPN2 in case you can't make it to town against the University of Tennessee. Fans are encouraged to wear black. We're doing a blackout against Tennessee. The jerseys will be reminiscent of the Mike Leach State sweatshirts. So if you have those, wear those. If you don't have them, you can buy them locally. Sizes are somewhat limited. I went and bought 3 last week. 1 for myself, 2 for my lovely bride. But a couple different styles. You can get the dry fits. You can get a mock neck. You can get a crew neck. You can get a hoodie. You can get a T-shirt. There's a lot of different options for you. So I encourage you to maybe, I'm not a big proponent of wearing like football apparel to basketball games or basketball apparel to football games. I'm just, maybe it's a little bit snobbish, but I don't like it. But I think the Mike Leach thing is perfectly permissible at any sporting event that involves Mississippi State. I think that is something we would all agree about. So if you have those, wear those. But it is a blackout Tuesday night against number 9 Tennessee. And you remember the last time we got together, they absolutely swarmed us in the first 5 minutes of that game, and there was no doubt who was going to win. We came back and tried to compete a little bit, but the game was already over. There was just, too much of a running start for Tennessee. So that's the next one. And then on Saturday, we're back in Humphrey Coliseum. Of course, I'll be in Albuquerque, New Mexico. That is a 7:30 Central tip broadcast on the SEC Network. So 2 home games this week, and you got to get Florida. You have to. I mean, you'd love to be able to get Tennessee, but you got to get Florida. And again, the league is better this year. I don't know that it's elite. I mean, Kentucky beating Tennessee over the weekend kind of shows you there is a lot of parity in the league in many respects. But State, Tennessee, Florida, and then we go to Alabama. It's like things just don't seem to let up to us until we get through the Big 12 Challenge against TCU. And thankfully, that'll be a game at home. They're going to kind of commemorate the game of change while we're there. And then things kind of ease up a little bit. But, looking around the league this year, there's not any nights off. But it does seem that our SEC schedule is very front-loaded. So my hope is that we will find some offensive cohesion, and then the quality of competition, I think, will subside a little bit in the second half of the schedule. And then we'll see how things kind of progress from there. But, again, the men, lose a ball game that we certainly could have won. We just couldn't make enough shots. And that sounds kind of an oversimplification of things, but that's what it boiled down to. You make a couple of baskets here and there to go along with the quality of defense you're playing, you win the game. And so I think that, again, not a moral victory guy by any stretch of the imagination, but I think you look at this, I think you can kind of build from there. All right, so yesterday the women went down to Texas A&M. Now, we have played some games down there that have been awfully memorable. You guys remember, Victoria Vivian's down there we started a comeback, and Victoria kind of put us on her back and helped us win a Southeastern Conference championship. But not a great A&M team this year. Of course, Gary Blair's no longer there. It's a much different dynamic, but the Lady Aggies now 5-11, 0-6 overall, 0-6 in the league. After the first quarter of this game, there was not much question about who was going to win. It was going to be Mississippi State. 4,162 fans paid to see it, and they saw the Bulldogs kind of dominate the game throughout. I mean, once State got the big lead, they kind of coasted from there, but A&M could never really get any closer. 17-6 after the first quarter. A&M actually wins the second quarter 18-17, but of course when you're down 11 and you only go up 1, it makes it a 10-point deficit at the break. The third quarter is even, and then State wins the fourth period 16-10, which gives you a 60-44 final. Alana Smith with 18 points from Mississippi State, Jessica Carter with 15. Starting to get a little more productivity out of her, and of course everybody is aware of her. You can't necessarily hide her out there on offense. People are going to find her. But nice night for her, 15 points, 7 rebounds, 6 of 12 from the floor, knocked down 3 of 4 free throws. And that's the thing, if people want to play that hack-a-shack defense, you got to make them pay for it. State also a good job of defending without fouling. Nobody with more than 3 fouls in a ball game. Jakalia Jordan, 35 minutes of action, 9 points, 3 rebounds, couple of assists. Did have some turnovers there. And Jessica Carter put the ball on the floor sometimes too. They got to clean that part of her game up. State with 17 turnovers in the game, and Jessica had 6 of them. Debresha Poe, 30 minutes of action. It's good to see her in the starting lineup, right? 8 points for her. The future is bright for sure. And Anastasia Hayes, 31 minutes of action, just 4 points. And you begin to think about that. Anastasia Hayes with just 4 points, and State still wins by double digits. I mean, how many times are you going to see that happen? Ajane Johnson off the bench with 18 minutes and 5 points. Danae Carter, we had to depend on her a lot last year, but 11 minutes just to 1 point. But it's always good to see ladies get out there and get some playing time. They all work exceptionally hard. State shoots it really well. 50% in the first quarter, 58.3% in the second. Third quarter, a little bit off, 36.3%, and then 60% there in the fourth quarter. So State for the ball game, 51.1%. And especially on the ladies' side, if you're going to shoot 50%, you're going to win a lot more games than you lose. We limited A&M at just 32.6% shooting. They were 4 of 15 from 3. State 5 of 12. You'd like to see that number a little bit better too, and you would. And in State, free throw just 56.3%, and A&M 58%. So it's kind of a trade-off there. But State with 8 points in the paint. You'd like to see that number go up. Points off turnovers. Excuse me, that was A&M's number. 22 points in the paint for State. 17 off turnovers. Second chance point 8. 5 on the fast break 7. And 6 off the bench. The lead changed just one time, and that was in the very early going. And then again, once State kind of put them in the rearview mirror early, it was just a matter of managing the game and getting out of College Station with a win. So congratulations to the Bulldogs, who are now 13-5 overall and 2-3 in the Southeastern Conference. Let's kind of look ahead here for the ladies. You're going to get a chance to see them a lot here in the coming weeks, as you guys are well aware. We will have Auburn this Thursday. Now, you wear your black shirt Tuesday, you wear your white shirt Thursday. And students, I'm so glad you're back. You guys are the lifeblood of Humphrey Coliseum. There's so many times in ball games when we need the crowd to get loud, and sometimes some of our fans, and I'm not being critical, I'm just kind of making an observation here, some of our fans get caught watching the game rather than participating. It's like they're there to be entertained, and you guys, you students, get us all engaged. And so, students, we need you to kind of carry the banner this week. Don't let everybody else just kind of sit back and watch. You get people on their feet. They'll respond, but they're depending on you. It's true. It's true. So State will face Auburn on Thursday. Of course, that's the return of Johnny Harris. We wish Johnny the best, but not at our expense, right? I mean, we wanted to do well, but not better than us. We're honest about that. It's nothing personal. Our loyalty is to Mississippi State. Auburn, again, a really difficult time last year in year one under Johnny Harris, and that's not an indictment on her. I mean, it's just kind of the reality of life. You've got to change the culture and implement your own system. This year's been a little different, I guess. They have been more competitive, but maybe not in league play. 10-7 overall, and they're 0-5 in the conference. They have lost all 5 games in consecutive order. Just looking here recently, since they get into conference play, they lose by 32 to Ole Miss in Oxford. They host Missouri and lose by just 6, 62-56. They get blasted by number 1 South Carolina. And a lot of people, that's going to happen to a lot of people. That doesn't really say much about Auburn. 94-42. Alabama gets them 88-57, and then at LSU, they lose 84-54, so lose about 30. So the only conference game they've had that's been competitive was a home date against the Missouri Tigers. They're 9-3 at home, 0-3 away from Auburn, and 0-3 on a true road environment, and then 1-1 neutral. So 1-4 away from their home arena. So it should set up pretty well for Mississippi State, but we need to win that game. And again, it's nothing personal. We just need to go win the game. And then on Sunday, you get a chance to see the ladies against the University of Kentucky. We have had some years where those late games with Kentucky have kind of determined the quality of our season, determined our seeding. And there are times we've had to go play them for a chance to win an SEC championship. They were in our way. We had some very difficult games up there, for sure. Then next week, we're on the road both games. If you're in the Mississippi area or in the Memphis area, on next Thursday, January 26th, you can go watch the ladies play against Ole Miss. And then we got to get a split there. We got to find a way. This is a quality Ole Miss team. We missed some opportunities against them for sure out here. So, again, a very important stretch of games. And I submit to you that, the women have a chance to go on a run here over the course of the next few weeks and really improve their standing within the league and perhaps on the bubble with the NCAA tournament. I still think these women can be an NCAA tournament team. I think, Sam loses that Ole Miss game early, and a lot of people were like, oh, I can't believe this. Guys, we split with them the last couple of years, and we're fortunate to do so because I think in many respects they were a better program than us, a better team than us certainly last year, and we're able to get that big win in Humphrey Coliseum. So excited about what is to come. And it feels like in many respects that maybe we're just kind of treading water right now. You know what I mean? It's like we got new coaches in, we're laying the foundation, and we want to win some games, but if we don't, we're not going to be terribly upset about it. I always hate to lose, but I know that losing is part of growing with new coaches, is you have to kind of find your players and find who you can trust and kind of put some things together. So, again, let's be patient with these coaches and let them kind of work through it. And I still think these ladies are going to put together a really good season. I really do. Not so optimistic about the men just because of the quality of the league this year and our offensive woes. But I think on the women's side of things that we are going to be a very good team, and I think we're going to chase an NCAA tournament bid. Certainly not going to host this year, but if we can just make the tournament this year, I think that is a very solid first step for Sam Purcell. And not to put that kind of pressure where it's tournament or bust, but I think this team is certainly capable of doing that. I know many of you kind of agreed. Robbie Falk and I have talked about this in recent weeks too. Robbie says the pieces are there. The pieces are there. It's just a matter of us just kind of finding the cohesion. And we will. I think Sam Purcell is a good coach. And there's a learning curve with that too. I mean, he's the head guy now. He wasn't the head guy at Louisville. He was kind of the big game recruiter. He's recruited at a high level. But, he's learning too. We're all learning as we kind of move forward. And you're like me. You want State to be competitive and put a winning program together on all courts and fields of play. And I don't think that the glory days of Mississippi State women's basketball may be behind us. It doesn't mean that we don't have some great days ahead. I know many of you look forward to those days when you expect us to go out and have a chance to win every game. It was a very fun time for us, right? I mean, everybody tuned in to watch. People that had never watched a women's basketball game before suddenly are buying T-shirts and going to tournament games and buying season tickets. I mean, it was a very, very fun time. I don't think those days are too far off. Will we get back to competing for the national championship? I think in time, but I don't know if we'll ever see anything like we saw with that wonderful team we had, superstars. Everybody knew their name. I mean, will we have another Tierra McCowan? I don't know. We have another Victoria Vivians? I don't know. We appreciate it for what it was, but really they kind of, the foundation was laid by people like Tan White and LaToya Thomas, and they built upon that. And so now it's kind of changed the expectations of what we can be in women's basketball. I know many of you are eager to get back to that when, you could say, hey, kind of poke your chest out a little bit, And And what's so funny, too, there are a lot of people, too, that never really cared for women's sports for one reason or another. But I think it really reignited that in our fan base. It's like, hey, this is really fun. This is our university being represented at a high level. And many of those players are from the South, of course, many of them from the state of Mississippi. And then the next thing you know, we start building our recruiting footprint. We go out to Texas and get Tierra McCowan. I think everybody started realizing, Vic Schaefer's building something special here. But I think he also paved the way for people like Sam Purcell to say, you know what? Hey, those people at Mississippi State will support women's basketball. Vic Schaefer won there and probably should have won an AFL championship. If he can do it, so can I. The infrastructure is here to get it done. And so I think he believes, I know you all believe, and you're all very hopeful about the future. So again, I think we've got the right gentleman coaching both of these programs. And then next year, expectations will be a little bit higher. But this year is a building block year on both sides of the basketball ledger. All right, time for today's Top 10 list. As always, brought to you by closewithblair.com. Blair Chandler is my friend, your friend, and he is your friend in the mortgage industry, right? There are a lot of processes out there in life that are kind of complicated. Getting a mortgage is often one of them. I mean, you got to get a note from your mom, like a lock of your hair from your first haircut, a pint of blood. There's so much that goes into it. And it seems like there's no shortage of things that underwriters are going to ask for that don't seem to make any sense. Like they want to make you jump through all these hoops. Well, get somebody that can kind of prevent that for you. Get somebody that's going to do it right for you on the front end, so the underwriting process doesn't have to be quite as stressful, right? A guy that's got 21 years of experience in the industry, back-to-back years, and a top 1% close ratio in the country. Blair works for Fairway Mortgage, a very reputable mortgage originator. A lot of people out there that want your business. Maybe they're in a subprime market, or maybe they work for some third-party vendor. Blair gets things done, and gets things done in a quality way because he works for a quality organization. Let me give you his phone number. It's 601-500-2344. Again, that's 601-500-2344. Call or text him today. You don't have to go through a receptionist. You don't have to go through a call center. You get the man directly. And if you mention to him you heard about him on the Boneyard, he's going to pay for your appraisal. How cool is that? How cool is that? It's about a $500 value. A lot of people want your business. Blair's proven it each and every day. He's a Bulldog through and through. Season ticket holder in multiple sports, has a place here in Starkville. He's always around. Guy loves Mississippi State. That's closewithblair.com. C-L-O-S-E with Blair, B-L-A-I-R.com. All right. Had a discussion with somebody, one of you fine folks, Boneyard listeners, on the social media. Said, hey, Steve, years ago, I didn't know much about the band Shinedown. And I have had the Shinedown avatar as my profile picture on Gene's page now, I don't know, maybe 10 years, maybe. And I don't know if you know this, but the A&R man for Shinedown is also named Steve Robertson, which has made for some interesting conversation over the years. I have gone to shows, introduced myself as Steve Robertson, and people mistake me for him. I have had people that have contacted me on social media because of the fact of my connection to Shinedown as a fan, and that's the only connection, but because Steve Robertson is mentioned in the liner notes of their albums. I've had people contact me wanting to send me their demo. Said, hey, I know you did a lot for Shinedown. Can you help me too? I didn't do anything for Shinedown other than listen to the music and share it with other people. All that said, we're doing a Shinedown Deep Tracks list today. This gentleman reached out to me and said, hey, I've listened to the music. What are some of your favorite deeper cuts that maybe weren't singles? Well, dear sir, you've come to the right place, because I don't know if there's anybody maybe short of the super fans, which I am one of, or members of the band that could put this list together. I got deep tracks from every album, but it skews more towards the earlier album. I'll tell you, Shinedown rocked, man. Shinedown still does, but they've gotten a little more progressive, I guess, in recent albums. I do think Attention is probably the best album since The Sound of Madness. But those first three Shinedown albums, it was hit after hit after hit after hit. And Shinedown has become a headliner. You may not know that Shinedown years ago played the State Palace Theater. They were an up-and-coming band out of Jacksonville, Florida. And now they're headlining arenas. Their last run on the Planet Zero tour, they went through Biloxi, sold it out. Sold out the Gulf Coast Coliseum. That's not an easy undertaking these days in the rock world. So Shinedown is a headliner, and I was with them from the very beginning. I wasn't the Steve Robertson in the liner notes, though I am in some liner notes on some albums, but not in Shinedowns. So no need to message me about that. It's a different guy. He's not as cool as me, may have a cooler job, but he's not as cool as me. All right, I have one honorable mention today, and I give Ani credit for mentioning this. I almost excluded the song, even though it is one of my favorite Shinedown songs, and it's not available on an album anywhere. Now, you can download it as part of the Sound of Madness, like expanded edition. If you played Rock Band, you could download this song, and I always do play the bass line on this because I love it. I asked Zach Myers one time, why didn't that song make the album? It's one of the better songs in that writing cycle, and they just didn't feel like it meshed with the rest of the album. It's the great song, Junkies for Fame. I absolutely love the song. I jammed it a couple days last week. So Junkies for Fame is your lone honorable mention today. And Ani gave me, a dozen songs. He mentioned Black Cadillac, and it all adds up. And if I ever do like a soundtrack for Flim Flam, it all adds up will be on there because I listened to that song a lot. Like when I was sitting down thinking about writing, I was thinking about all these people that called me a liar and said that I was making all this stuff up and questioned my integrity, and it all adds up. And after a while, it's like it motivates you. The negativity, all it did was just kind of tell me that I was right about things. But Junkies for Fame is your only official, and that's going to be on your playlist today, too. You'll have these 10 songs plus Junkies for Fame, because if you don't know Junkies for Fame, I want you to know that one. I want you to know it. Very catchy, upbeat song. The bass line's a great groove. All right, number 10 from the album Sound of Madness. This is a song, too, that a lot of fans were hoping they would release as a single. They didn't. And the thing that I'll tell you, if you're new to Shinedown, like if I was going to sell you on the band of Shinedown, I would say listen to the Sound of Madness album. There's going to be some hits on there and there's going to be some hits you don't know that I think will pull you in. I started, of course, with the Leave a Whisper album. I think I was probably one of the first 100 Shinedown fans in Mississippi. But I guess I was living in Baton Rouge back then. But you understand my point. I was on that bandwagon really, really early. But I would start there and then maybe work back to Leave a Whisper and then to Us and Them. And I love that Us and Them album. I know some guys in the band that don't think it's their best offering. I think there are some really strong songs on there. We're going to talk about that. But number 10, it's Breaking Inside. I feel like I'm breaking inside. And there's a part, too, it talks about, there's so many songs of empowerment. And this is one of those songs, too, where it's like you've dealt with some adversity and you're like, I feel like I'm falling apart, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not gonna do it. I feel like I'm breaking inside, but I'm going to find a way to hold it together. It's a great track. Number 9, this is one, not a lot of people talk about this one. I submit to you, this is an absolute banger. And looking at this, I don't think we have a ballad on here, even though Shinedown's kind of known for their ballads. We went for the deep cut banger list here today. But it's a great song off Us and Them called Trade Yourself In. Trade yourself in. It's basically about kind of reinventing yourself. You maybe you've ruined the name you got or the reputation you have. But let's trade ourselves in, for a better version, which is a great song called Better Version 2. Number 8, off the Planet Zero album. This is one of the more important songs on this album, and nobody talks about it. It's a song called America Burning. Much of Planet Zero was kind of written during the quarantine and inspired by events during the quarantine. It's not political, but it is kind of a commentary on society, on how things kind of happened during the quarantine. So the album has some darker moments, and this is one of them, America Burning. Be sure and check that one out. Number 7, one of my favorite songs off the Attention, Attention album is the title track, Attention, Attention. Now, this is a concept album. I'm a big fan of those, and I like to listen to them in their entirety, right? Like when I get on the road, I'm going to start track 1 and go all the way through. Attention, Attention as an album is basically a story. And again, it's like the main character is like reach the end of their rope. Reach the end of their rope and like it's over. I'm ready for life to be over. I've given up on life. And then over the course of the album, you see the challenges and you see the victories and you see that this person finds themselves and finds their voice again. And by the end of it, all of a sudden they're renewed. And it's like the opening track on that after when the guy comes in and sits down is Devil. And the devil's right behind you. The devil's in the next room. But the title track, Attention, Attention, is one that I think is probably should have been a single. I don't know that it works well on the radio, but if you like U2, when you hear that opening bass line, it is going to be somewhat reminiscent of Bullet the Blue Sky from U2. The very first time I heard it, I was like, this is the same bass line. Very, very similar. But Attention, Attention, phenomenal. My favorite song on that album is probably Monsters. But this Attention, Attention is one maybe you don't know you should. Number 6, this was on my run playlist, my workout playlist, my recreational playlist, my Feel Sorry for Myself playlist, my Feel Great About Myself playlist. This is one of those songs that always makes me want to grit my teeth and really get down to it. Like if I'm working through something, this is one of those songs. It's left out from the Leave a Whisper album. And it starts out with Where's That Space of Fear You Hide? And the best part of this song, if I could sing it, if I had a better singing voice, I wouldn't be your good friend and host, right? But it talks about getting even for all the right reasons. And it's like I listen to that sometimes and I think about some of the things you encounter in life. And there are a lot of times, too, that I've had, people come at me for no good reason at all. And there are some people that I owe amends to that, maybe their resentment of me is warranted. I don't live with bitterness or resentment in my heart, but I can tell you, probably the greatest compliment that anybody ever gave me years ago, they didn't know that I would find out about this, but a friend of mine shared this with an acquaintance and it got back to me. Said, Steve Robertson's the best friend you'll ever have. But if you ever cross him, he's the worst enemy you'll ever meet. And that's kind of how I feel about things. If people come after me, I'll let it go for a while. But once I decide to react, it's like you may shoot me with a tiddlywink and I'll drop a nuclear bomb. But left out is a part of that too. Getting even for all the right reasons. That should probably be a tattoo somewhere. Put it on my tombstone. All right, number 5, from the Threat to Survival album, which in many respects I think is undervalued. I will say this about the Threat to Survival album. It is a little bit disjointed. Like the first few albums, I think flowed really well. Amaryllis, I think, is great. Amaryllis, the catalog kind of expanded a little bit. But Threat to Survival, I think, is a little bit disjointed. I don't know if it's production value or song choice, whatever. But the song Dangerous, I've shared this with people before, like when people are dealing with something. I've shared this song with them because there'll be times I'll be out on the highway and maybe I'm feeling sorry for myself. I'm having a tough day. And I think about the things that I've gone through in life. And a lot of that, too, isn't just about sobriety. I mean, living life on life's terms is difficult at times. I mean, for all of us, it is. And, maybe I have led a harder life than most. And it's like sometimes when I sit down and share my story, people are like, I can't believe that. It's the only life I've known, right? So I have nothing to compare it to. But the song Dangerous is one that always gets me turned around, no matter how, like if I'm in a bad mood or whatever, this is one of those songs. Sometimes I'll just put it on repeat. And sometimes it brings tears to my eyes because I'd rather be dangerous than anything else, right? I mean, it's like I think about all the things that I'm known for. And that's the thing. That's the one thing. It's like one of the things my dad asked me years ago. I've never forgotten this. And I don't know where he got it from. I don't think it was a Freddie Robertson original. He said, would you rather be feared or respected? That's why I want to be respected. He goes, well, that's the difference between me and you. I'd rather be feared because fear commands a respect on its own. And there's some truth in that. All right, number 4, and this is also from The Sound of Madness. And lyrically, this is one of the most phenomenal songs on the album. And there's one in there about the girl snorting in coke through a suicide note. I mean, what that might be a very troubling image, but how profound is the writing in all that? I mean, and how intent on self-destruction the protagonist of the story is. It's crazy. But it's a great song called Cyanide Sweet Tooth Suicide. The opening guitar riff on that is an absolute roller coaster. If you don't know it, you should. Number 3, great track from the Amaryllis album. And I have an Amaryllis tattoo, in case you're wondering. I got it out in Hollywood, matter of fact. It's a great song called My Name, You're Wearing Me Out. And it's basically like, you know what? I've been the victim of all this backbiting and slander and defamation. It's like all this stuff is going on, and that's what the song is about. And then it talks about, my name is revenge, my name is this, my name is that. And one party says, my name is revenge and I'm here to stake my claim. But lyrically, I think it's a phenomenal song. And again, none of these songs were singles. That's what's so amazing about this, is every one of these songs, I think, could have been a hit single. And they weren't released as a single. And I mean, how many singles can you release off an album, right? I think Sound of Madness had 5. Amaryllis, I think, had 3. But the number 1 and number 2, these are from the first 2 albums. And Jason Todd was a guitar player then, and Brad was a bass player. And to be honest with you, as much as I love the new lineup, I think the earlier stuff had a rougher edge because of Jason Todd. Now, Jason's a guy that's had some real challenges in life. He is a very talented musician. At one time, he was married to Melody Van Zant, the daughter of Johnny Van Zant from Lynyrd Skynyrd. That's how Shinedown was able to record Simple Man, right? You didn't know the connection? Well, now you know. Because the Lynyrd Skynyrd family does not just let anybody cover their music. And Shinedown had their first record coming up, and so the family agreed to let Jason and the guys record it. So that's how that happened. And Shinedown's version of Simple Man is amazing. There are some parts, I think Brent kind of oversings it, but the sentiment in the song is amazing. I think Johnny would be proud. But we're going back to those first couple of albums. Number 2, off the great album Us and Them. It's a song called Begin Again. It's just basically talking about, I would do anything to kind of start my life over. I would do anything. I've been through all this pain. I've been through all this turmoil. But it's this basically a song of aggression. It's a song of fist in your face. It's a song of knife in your back. It's like, you know what? You give me a second chance at this, I'm going to get it right. Number 1, though, why this wasn't released as a single, I really believe, like if this had been the debut single for Shinedown, I think the course of their catalog would have changed tremendously. Not to say they're not true to their own artistic vision, but I think if this song had been on the radio, 45 was out there and everywhere, and everybody loved it, and there was all this controversy. People thought it was a song about suicide. It's not. It's kind of metaphorically like looking down the barrel of a gun, and not one that you're holding, right? It's like you're kind of up against it. So a lot of people got to know Shinedown from the great song 45. Probably my favorite song on that album is Burning Bright. It was released later as a single. But number 1 for me, of all the deep cuts on all the Shinedown albums, goes all the way back to Leave a Whisper album, and it's Stranger Inside. This is one of those hard-rocking, bass, in-your-face. It's a rock and roll song all the way, man. It is absolutely stellar. And again, I think it should have been a single. I think all of these should have been and could have been singles and done exceptionally well. But you can't release them all. And that's where we can talk about them. I know many of you are kind of on the fence, kind of peripheral Shinedown fans. And of course, they've mellowed a little bit in recent years.
92% of households that start the year with Peloton are still active a year later.
All because of a fancy bike?
It's not just a bike. Peloton makes treadmills too.
All treadmills are the same.
Our treadmills can adjust speed and incline automatically, so you never break your stride. Whether you're squeezing in a power walk or training for a marathon, Peloton can help you achieve your fitness goals. 92% stick with it. So can you. Try the Peloton Tread risk-free with the 30-day home trial. New members only. Not available in remote locations. See additional terms at onepeloton.com/home-trial.
Progressive presents Adjusting to the Suburbs.
I never thought about space in my cramped apartment, but in this house, all I see is empty space. The sofa and ottoman look like tiny islands in a sea of hardwood floors. I could get 2 ottomans in the living room, but then I'd need another sofa. I could tell people I'm into minimalism.
Anyway, when you save with Progressive by bundling your home and auto, that's the easy part of adjusting to the suburbs. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, coverage provided and serviced by affiliates and third-party insurers.
It's amazing how that happens. Like in the beginning, everybody's hungry and dying to make it, and maybe they're dealing with addiction or whatever, and all of a sudden they start making some money and going to therapy, and then we're singing about puppies and things like that. But this goes back to the beginning. The dark, living on a prayer type stuff. It's like I want so bad to make it, and this is me bearing my soul out here and my pain. And there's a lot of that in the early albums of Shinedown, and of course, again, they kind of heal a little bit. Now it's a lot more about empowerment. But it's interesting to listen to these catalogs from start to finish. And sometimes when I take long road trips, it's what I do. I'll just pick an artist like Tesla, and I'll start with Mechanical Resonance, and I'll listen to every album all the way through, and then I go on Facebook and I rank the albums and have discussions with my friends about it. I'll do the same thing with Motley or whatever, but I would encourage you maybe next time you take a road trip in between podcasts, maybe put on this Shinedown catalog from start to finish, and just begin with Leave a Whisper and go all the way through Planet Zero, and you'll see the maturation of the band, but I think you'll also see the themes. A lot of the songs change, and they get a lot more hopeful. And again, Shinedown, one of the biggest headliners in rock music today. I don't know if you know this. They've had 18 number one hits, which is the most of any rock band in the history of the United States. And number 2 on that list is 3 Days Grace. Maybe you didn't know that, but it's true. Shinedown, more number one hits. And the previous record holder before Shinedown and 3 Days Grace surpassed them was Van Halen. So some pretty elite company there for Shinedown. The greatest number one act, most number ones in American rock history. And so these are some songs that were not on that list, but I think if you just know the hits, I think you listen to these, they're going to pull you in. You're going to feel that you're glad that you're a part of the Shinedown family. And I lose count sometimes. I guess I got maybe 3 Shinedown tattoos. I don't know if I'll get another one, but things change. But at some point I'll run out of room. I'll get covered up at some point, but I do have a couple of Shinedown tattoos and very happy to wear them. I guess I've got 3 actually. Yeah, 3. But that's your top 10 list for today. Thanks so much for your support of the top 10 list. You have ideas, reach out to Roy Samonte on Twitter at Dogmatic67. You could probably find him on Facebook too, but if you're looking for our great list, find him on Spotify also at Dogmatic67. It's DAWGMATIC 67. All right, time for the next segment of the show, brought to you by Campus Bookmart. This segment is fabulous. We're going to talk about some things that are about to happen. I'll tell you what else is fabulous is Campus Bookmart. I was there last week. As I mentioned, I picked up some Mike Leach merch. Got some cool things, right? Got the hoodie, got the crew neck, got a sweatshirt, got a lot of different stuff. Got a dry fit. Bought some pajamas. Not for me. I'm not a pajama wearer. My wife is. She likes to lounge around and stuff. So you can outfit the Bulldog fans in your life just by going to campusbookmart.net. I encourage you when you're in town to go by and peruse their fine selections in person. However, if you can't, if you live perhaps in a foreign state outside of God's country, campusbookmart.net's the way to go. You'll be glad you did. And when I was in there the other day, it's incredible how many online orders they have. I mean, like right next to the register, it's like just a line of your orders. They've become pros of this stuff. Campusbookmart.net is without a doubt the best place to find online merchandise. And you're also supporting a Starkville business, which is amazing. I always encourage you to do that. Use promo code BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. That gets you free shipping on all orders over $50. Any order less than $50, absolutely incomplete. Excuse me, at $75. I messed that up. It's been imprinted in my brain, and I'm like reading the text and talking to you at the same time. So let me focus on this. Promo code BSR gets you free shipping on all orders over $75. Over $75. You'll be glad you used that. We're saving you some money just by supporting our show. And we thank the folks at Campus Bookmart for all they've done. And when I get ready to buy Mississippi State merch, that's my first stop. It's Campus Bookmart. All right, let's talk a little bit about staffing changes. You guys know there's still a couple spots left to fill. I don't think we're too far off here, okay? What I say by that is I think Tony Hughes will coach the tight ends. That hasn't been officially announced yet, but I suspect that's going to be the case. I think you've got to have Tony, the Lord of the living room, to borrow a phrase from Jerry Maguire. I think you're going to be happy with Tony on the road. And there's people, Tony's going to take a spot off the field. I don't know why Tony would do that. He's got his years in. He could retire if he wanted to, but we need Tony Hughes on the field. And currently listed as your nickelbacks coach. Again, I expect that to change. Now, Tony coached tight ends at Ole Miss and at Mississippi State. It is not a personnel group that he is unfamiliar with. But the reality of it is we need Tony Hughes recruiting the great state of Mississippi because everybody knows Tony Hughes. I don't know if there's been a better recruiter in my career than Tony Hughes. And that dates back maybe Melvin Smith in his heyday. But Tony is outstanding because everybody knows Tony, and Tony knows who to trust, and people know they can trust Tony. And so if Tony's moving over, and of course Zach coached the safeties last year, who's going to coach the safeties this year? Well, the name that I continue to hear is Brett Dewhurst. Brett Dewhurst. And you can say, okay, well, Steve, who is Brett Dewhurst? Now, he has worked as a senior defensive analyst for some time. Now, prior to that, he was at Texas State. This is a guy that he's not a newbie in that respect, right? 3 seasons there? He coached at Texas State. Originally a exercise sports science major at Texas Tech in 2011. A native of Klein, Texas. Began his coaching career at Texas Tech from 2008 to 2011 as a student assistant. Pretty great era right there. Then he was a graduate assistant at Midwestern State in 2012. They won the Lone Star Conference Championship that year and made the Division II playoff with a 9-2 record. Then he went to work at the University of Houston. Houston had great defenses while he was there. One of the most improved defenses in the country in 2013. Went to 3 bowl games, 13, 14, and 15 with the Cougs. Then he spent time at Southeastern Louisiana as a quality control analyst under former, I don't know who coached Southeastern when he was there. He was Southeastern. He went back to Tech. But 1 season DB coach at Southeastern after being an analyst there. And this is a guy, too, again, goes to Texas Tech as a safeties coach in 2018 and then spent 3 seasons there, then joined the staff at Mississippi State. So this is not a situation where this is like a GA kind of earning their first opportunity. This is a guy that has been on the field, understands defensive game planning, understands coaching ball skills and things of that nature. This is a guy, too, that Zach Arnett apparently has a lot of trust in. There are a lot of people that tell me that Brett is a guy that's going to do some great things here at Mississippi State and that he has earned this opportunity. And so when you begin to kind of break things down, that would fill up your defensive coaching staff there. David Turner coaching the defensive line, which is a great thing for Mississippi State, not just as a recruiter, but as a technician. This is a guy that's a great teacher of the game, produced a lot of NFL players when he was here. Be his 3rd stop at Mississippi State, as he calls it, home. Matt Brock will continue to coach your linebackers and then be your defensive coordinator. And as you guys know, he called the plays during the bowl game. And I thought we timed up our blitzes. We were very creative with that. 7 sacks during the ball game. Darcel McBath, a Leach guy through and through, will remain here and coach a corners. It's another guy, too, that has the respect of Zach Arnett. And how can you look at what Darcel McBath has done from a production standpoint and look at the quality of the play that his corners have produced and say that he's not a great coach? He absolutely is. And then you'd have Dewhurst on the back end coaching the safeties. Offensive side of the football, Will Friend's going to coach the offensive line. Chad Bumpus will coach all receivers. There will not be an inside receivers coach and an outside receivers coach. Chad's going to coach it all. I think he is absolutely prepared for this position. Did a great job at Utah. I think you feel great about that. We're expected to have a tight ends coach. We've mentioned Tony Hughes, and then there's a running backs coach. Now, I continue to hear there's a good chance Jason Washington is retained. That's not been made official. I checked on it again Friday. It's not official just yet. Zach still hadn't made the decision, but it appears to be trending that way. I think it's about letting Barbay kind of get to know Jason a little bit. Jason's a guy that can sell himself to, and again, a good recruiter. More so on the portal side than in the high school ranks, even though he did get Seth Davis. I think that Jason's a guy that can sell himself and sell Mississippi State, and he's recently engaged to a Starkville resident. I know that he wants to stay. I had a former Mississippi State assistant coach about 10 days ago tell me, I think Jay Wash is going to survive this. He may be the only one that does, but I think he is the only guy that on offense that'll be retained. And it's interesting, too, because he started out on the defensive side of football with Zach Arnett, moved over to offense, and coached the running backs. And that was the big discussion last year. As we tried to get Bumpus back, and they offered him the running backs position coach. And Chad, to his credit, says, hey, I'm already a Power 5 wide receiver coach. I've never played running back. Why would I go coach running backs? And the reality of it is that Chad played his cards right, and I think that's better for his career and for Mississippi State. Because what if he'd come last year as a running backs coach? I mean, he could be out this year, right? That's not what we would have wanted. But Jay Wash did a good job, I think, maximizing production from these backs. I think DJ and Woody Marks both benefited from him. He was a running back himself in his career, so he understands the position. He has some credibility in the room. But he is a guy, too, that I think has some attention to detail. And I think that personnel group probably benefits from Jay Wash's personality. I think that he is a guy that knows how to manage those guys. Now, we've had some attrition in the room. You've had some walk-on guys that have entered the portal and searched for scholarship opportunities elsewhere. You spend 4 years in the program and you've got a COVID year available to you. It's like, you know what? I'll even go play at a lower level. This may be the last time that I ever play football in my life. I want to get on the field. So that's not an indictment on Jason Washington. Clearly, you'd like to have Dylan Johnson back. But you look at what Simeon Price has done down the stretch now that he's healthy. I think you feel like, you know what, hey, we can manage this thing pretty well. Then you've got Jeffrey Pittman coming in next year along with Seth Davis. I don't know how much Seth plays. I mean, Seth's got to gain some weight. He does. Got to get a little bit bigger. But I think that room is in good shape. But I think Jason is probably, at this point, the best guy to manage that. And, of course, we don't know the other candidates out there. We don't know who Barbay knows or who he may want to bring in. But I think Jason's a guy that, has spent some time kind of getting to know the process of selling Mississippi State. And, how much he recruits in Mississippi kind of remains to be seen. But I think if you keep him, I think that gives you a lot of flexibility in many respects. I think you begin to feel good about all this stuff. I think you begin to think, hey, this is a staff that can coach and recruit. This is a staff that you can really get behind. I've been impressed. I think you all have been as well. And I think, again, it just reinforces the fact that Bracky Brett and Dr. Keenum made the right decision by handing the reins of this football program over to Zach Arnett. Every hire that he's made to this point, I think has been all aces. I would love for him to keep Mason Miller, but if you're not going to keep Mason, I think you feel great about the addition of Will Friend. That's a guy that we've wanted to hire countless times. He's a guy that's a Mississippi native. His mom lives in Starkville. He played there in Philadelphia, in the Neshoba Central. And so I think when you run through all this stuff, you begin to think, hey, you bring Brad Peterson back, you bring Will Friend in, you bring in Bumpus, you keep Tony Hughes on the field, you bring back David Turner. Then you go out and get Kevin Barbay, who had an explosive offense last year in year one at Appalachian State. And so I don't think there's going to be this steep learning curve. And you bring back a lot of veterans on offense. You're going to have a veteran offensive line, just minus LaQuinson Sharp. You're going to have a wide receiver core that has lost a couple playmakers, and hopefully you can hang on to Tulu, which kind of brings us to our next point. I hear it's still a back-and-forth deal. Now, some astute Bulldog fans have pointed out that he has deleted some tweets, about transferring and about offers that he's got and things of that nature. I think that is probably a positive sign, but it's not over. He is still in the transfer portal. Confirmed that this morning. Still in the portal. He has not withdrawn. Now, the 18th is the final day to enter the portal. If you're not in the portal by the 18th, then you can't transfer in the spring semester, unless you're a grad transfer. If you're using the one-time transfer exception, you have to be in the portal by the 18th. And so if Tulu pulls out between now and the 18th, there's no chance of him leaving, of course, until you get post-spring, when the transfer portal window opens up again after the spring semester. So what you're hoping now is that, hey, things appear to be trending in the right direction. It's not over by any stretch, because tomorrow may be a different day. But today, there is some confidence that he is going to stay at Mississippi State. We'll see how things progress. But Tulu Griffin makes Mississippi State a better football team. How many yards of field position did he give Mississippi State this year? This guy is an elite kick returner. He's not an All-American just for, because of his name. The guy is an outstanding football player, and we need to keep him. We need to keep him, whatever we need to do. No, he's not your quarterback. But Tulu Griffin helps Mississippi State win games, period. Tulu Griffin knows what's expected at Mississippi State. It's not just his talent, it's his experience. And it's the fact that he makes us a better football team. So, again, we'll work through this process. Coaches are working. They've let him know that he is a priority to them. They want him to be involved. Will Rogers, I understand, is kind of working behind the scenes to let Tulu know, hey, we need you here, big guy. Let's go out here and do some big things together next year. And that's the thing that I know all of you look at that schedule next year and it's like, hey, it's all set up well for us to have the big up year, right? To have a chance to maybe, go to a New Year's Six bowl game. That opportunity is there and awaiting for us if we don't get in our own way, right? And that's happened sometimes. I mean, how many times have we had our foot on Ole Miss's throat and let them get up? Dan Mullen was a guy that sometimes, took his eye off the prize a little bit. It's like, okay, well, I've won the state, but yet we couldn't capitalize on that, right? We're winning some in-state recruiting battles, we're winning the Egg Bowl, but we could never get the next step. And then all of a sudden, we start focusing on the wrong things, and we let Ole Miss get up and kind of punch us in the mouth. Well, this is kind of one of those moments, right? It's like last year it was billed to be kind of the change, the guard that, Lane Kiffin was taking over, and they were a top 10 team, and they were going to be in the playoffs, and then they ended up out of the top 25, losing 5 of the last 6, much as we all expected. And so next year, I think you've got a chance to kind of distance yourself from Ole Miss a little bit. Ole Miss will be a good team next year. I don't think they'll be as good as they've been this year. I think they're probably looking at 7, 5, 8, and 4 because they pick up Georgia next year. Now, Georgia's not going to be the same team they were, but Georgia's still got a ton of talent. And, pound for pound, there's probably not a better roster in the country than the University of Georgia. Glad we don't play them. I think we played them, 3 out of the last 5 years. Time we get a break from those guys. But, we've got a chance to have a very good season and, of course, set ourselves up for recruiting well the next couple of years. And so I think settling these coaching positions, but also, too, implementing this offense, in the spring and kind of giving us a running start into the fall, there's always a learning curve with a new offense. It's true. Always, always, always. But I feel a whole lot better about that knowing that I have a veteran offense that can kind of make those adjustments on the fly. Their heads aren't going to be spinning quite as much as these newcomers would be. And then you got other guys coming in that, hey, will be all they know. And so I think it'll be an interesting marriage this fall. But I think the fact that you've got so many guys with so many SEC snaps under their belt, I think the learning curve is probably not as steep as it would be otherwise. It's not like you've got to rebuild, and you expect to be really salty on defense, especially if we can shore up the back end. I mean, we're losing a lot of bodies back there. However, we've hit the portal hard. We've got some guys with some Power 5 experience we're bringing in, and I think we can feel pretty good about the direction of things. But I think settling these coaching hires. And again, Matt Dewhurst, I don't expect there to be a press conference. I guess there could be. It'll probably be a release from the university announcing all these position changes. And again, when I think it's all said and done, Dewhurst will coach the safeties. Tony Hughes will coach the tight ends. And probably Jason Washington coaching the running backs. I hope that's the case. I think that's probably a good thing. But again, I don't know who else Zach Arnett is considering. So you can't just say, oh, it's a mistake, when perhaps he's got a better candidate out there. But, we'll see how things progress. But those are the things that I expect to see happen over the course of the next several days. All right, final segment of the show, brought to you by the fine folks at Portico. I told you before, if I was moving to Starkville now, I'd move to Portico. I'd love to be that close to campus, but also kind of nestled away safely in a neighborhood off of 12, right? Not there up there on the main drag, but kind of off the beaten path a little bit. Very easy to get to. Turn off 82 on a 12 light. Go into campus. The very first right is Pat Station Road. Very short drive to the four-way stop. Portico is right there on the right-hand side. Go by and check it out today. You'll be glad you did. You can start with a 2-bedroom, 2-bath home, go all the way up to a 4-bedroom, 4-bath home, and really anything in between. If you need a custom build, they can help you with that. If you don't want to worry with that, they can help you with that too. Phase 1's completely sold out. Phase 2 under development now. Some of those homes are sold. Some are available, but also some lots available. So you can pick a lot, pick a house plan, and get things built to your specifications. Everybody deserves to do that at least once. Call my friend Brooks Bryan, former Diamond Dog, 601-416-8075, 601-416-8075. And I suspect if you talk to him long enough, you might hear about him robbing a home run against the University of Washington in a regional that won the regional that sent us to Omaha. I don't know if you know that. He did. He's not just this cool guy that rolls around with a buzz cut and scrubs on. The guy, I think he could still play. I've joked with him before. I said, Brooks, I think you could still play. He goes, I might have one at bat left in me. And I said, well, if that's the case, I'm calling a bunt. I'm going to make you leg it out. I could teach Brooks to bunt. I could do it. I'm probably the best instructor of bunting that you've never known that's not a college coach. I can do it. I can tell you how to do it. I can teach you. Brooks, get at me. We'll take care of it. All right, so let's get after this final segment of the show. We picked up a commitment over the weekend. We had some official visitors in town, not a bunch of them. We had a few. And we picked up a commitment from former Kentucky defensive back, Jacoby, call me Kobe, Albert. Now, Jacoby Albert was one of the top prospects in the country out of high school. And that's the thing about this, the portal stuff that I don't think that people fully appreciate. It's like we only think about the guys we're losing. We never think about the guys we're gaining. Now, Kobe, we'll call him Kobe. His mama named him Jacoby. His friends call him Kobe. He's from Fairfield, Alabama. Went to Fairfield Preparatory School. And looking back, he was a 247 Sports 4-star composite. He was originally committed to Auburn. Everybody thought, hey, everything will be fine. He'll go to Auburn. There's no point in getting after him. He's going to Auburn. Then all the problems happened with Brian Harsin over there. They began to rethink some things. Decommitted from Auburn late, took a visit to Kentucky, and jumped on the Kentucky bandwagon. Looking back here at his timeline, and you can do that yourself on 247 Sports. So he had committed to Auburn way back in August prior to his senior season. And then took an official visit to Kentucky December the 10th, and then backed off that Auburn pledge December 13th, and then on signing day announces for Kentucky. That's back on December 15th. He was a summertime enrollment, played 10 games, a true freshman, and then entered a transfer portal. So he has 4 years left to play 3. He is 5'11", 175 pounds. He can play corner or safety. I'm told he is athletic enough to do either. And that's a lot of time Mississippi State puts their 5 best DBs on the field regardless, right? But Jacoby Albert was considered the number 20 athlete in the country. Ranked a 3-star by 247 Sports. But again, the rest of the industry liked him a little bit better. But 5'11", 175, you see pictures of this kid. I mean, his athleticism just jumps off the screen. But he took official visits to Michigan, Maryland, Auburn, and Kentucky. So it wasn't like, Kentucky beat UAB or Memphis for him, all due respect to them. But this is a guy that had double-digit offers and took all of his visits and is now prepared to enroll at Mississippi State. And you begin to think about this. We talk about rebuilding the secondary. Last year we had taken Jackie Matthews, and many of you didn't know much about Jackie. We hyped him up some on the show and on the website. And I think Jackie easily met those expectations and that hype. And I remember watching him in fall camp this year. I'm thinking, we didn't have a dog safety. And what I mean by that, not the position of a Bulldog safety. We did not have a dog out there in the secondary that would lay the lick to somebody. Now, Emmanuel Forbes would at corner, but we didn't have that guy that if you crossed the face of the safety that you paid for it. Jackie Matthews gave us that level of physicality. I think every one of you wishes Jackie was back. Jackie's going to try to go pro this year. Got a little bit banged up and then didn't play in the bowl game, right? But Jackie is a dude. And so if we get the production level of Jackie Matthews out of these guys that we're signing out of the portal, I think we're going to feel really good about life. And I think when you look at the athleticism from Albert, I think you feel like, hey, this is a guy that could be another Jackie Matthews. Now, Jackie, obviously a little bit older, a little bit more experienced, but the athleticism is there. There's no question about it. Jalen Green has obviously exhausted his eligibility. Colin Duncan has declared that he's entering the draft, but has not signed with an agent unless he's done it in recent days. So the doorway is still open for him to come back, but we could be replacing 3 starting safeties this year. Sean Preston is coming back. Sean obviously will compete. It's been a very solid 2 deeper for state, been very good against the run, and it started a few games for us. We feel good about the direction of things with Sean. Coverage at times has been a little bit up and down. But Sean is a very solid SEC player. And then you begin to work through this, and you begin to think about the fact that, you have really worked hard in the portal on the defensive backfield. And we've got to get some offensive players kind of lined up now too, though. That's the thing now. It's like you start thinking, okay, we're going to have a tight ends coach. Okay, well, who's playing tight end? We're just going to go pull some kids out of the stand? Well, no, we're not going to do that. And we've got, got some guys coming in, for visits. And we're going to talk a little bit about that later in the week. I mean, the portal deadline is the 18th. That doesn't mean you have to have a decision made by the 18th. You have to declare that you're transferring by January 18th. You can pick your school later, provided that you can get into school. And that's the thing with state's delayed enrollment date. I mean, it's all the way up to the drop ad date. And there's even then there's some wiggle room. Jalen Green was a guy, or maybe it was Marcus Banks. One of those guys was right up against it, and you had to go with the registrar's office and get that handled. But there's always some wiggle room. But when you start thinking about, number one, Isaac Smith, right? Gatorade Player of the Year out of Itawamba High School. To be honest with you, I never really doubted it was coming. I may have been the only one in the industry. There are a lot of people that thought he was going to go to LSU. I kept hearing that was too far away from home. I know some locals tried to kind of push for LSU, not in an inappropriate way. I'm just saying there was a lot of people that were hoping he'd go to LSU. But he wanted to be close to family, so they could come and share in the experience. I think Isaac Smith's a guy that'll play as a true freshman. And you add Jacoby Albert, we just talked about him. And there's Christopher Keys. And I think Chris is a guy, too, that could be, he could be a free safety. He could be a Colin Duncan. Chris is a guy that started some games last year for Indiana, originally from Collins High School. He's one of our more recent commitments. And you throw in Kamari Rogers and Radar Jones. Now, those two guys don't have a ton of Power 5 experience. Kamari played a little bit this year, of course, basically a year removed from having an ACL tear. And that's a concern, right? I mean, he's had multiple ACL tears. How healthy and durable is he going to be? That's a concern. However, if he lives up to his potential, he could be the next great Mississippi State corner. There's Radar Jones, a guy that didn't play last year due to academics, but a guy whose athleticism jumps off the charts, and he's got a chance now to kind of, reset his career and come in here and do some big things. But yeah, we've done a great job going out and finding the guys. And again, you didn't just go get 2. So far, you have 4 defensive backs from the transfer portal that are coming in to kind of shore up and compete for some of those positions that were opened up by some departures. And you know what you got with DeCambrion Richardson. So this spring's going to be important because you got to find a way to get these guys to communicate, learn the system, and be ready to go so you don't have bust in the secondary. That's an important aspect of all this. But the raw materials to have a great secondary is already here. It's already here. And you start thinking about throwing big Eric Taylor in the mix on that defensive front, all 6'4", 295 pounds of him. And you start thinking, you got some dudes here. You also got some young guys you can plug into that developmental pipeline at corner. I think kind of feel good about the future. I like the class, but we're still an incomplete grade because of the fact we've got to find some guys on the offensive side of football. We got to get some tight ends. I mean, you got to think about this. You start thinking about your sales pitch to recruits. Well, I'll tell you what, guys, you want to play tight end? We don't have any. We got some guys that maybe that have, grown up a little bit. We could probably bulk up a little bit and, kind of see how things go. But we don't have a true tight end on the roster, right? I think we all would agree with that. We don't. There's a lot of people that think, you know what? We've got some options. We're running out of time, though. But Rylan Godey from Georgia has a COVID year left as a grad transfer, and he is visiting Mississippi State this coming weekend. Now, I understand we do have a connection here. I understand that there's somebody very close to him that is also considering Mississippi State. That could be a factor. They could be here together. We'll see how things progress. But, you got to go get a couple tight ends. It's like you start thinking about Antonio Harmon. I mean, as long and big and athletic as he is, and that big frame he's got, he could probably add 15, 20 pounds. be an H-back type. I mean, yeah. I mean, could you see that? Yeah, absolutely, I could. I think Antonio Harmon's a great athlete. I do. And maybe this is the spot for him. But you've got to get some tight ends. I think you probably got to get a wide receiver. And if you hang on to Tulu, maybe you don't need that because of the fact you're not going to be doing a lot of 4 and 5 wides, right? I mean, you're not going to have maybe the same demand for receivers in this offense that you did last year. And I think you probably need to transfer a portal quarterback, even if it's a walk-on. You need to get somebody with some experience. You know, there was some discussion over the weekend that there was some flirtation between Will Rogers and Auburn, and then, of course, Will kind of puts those rumors to bed. You know, of course, you sweat everything out to the 18th, but I'm hearing that Chris Parson might actually be able to go through spring practice now. Maybe somewhat limited, but Chris Parson was a little bit banged up toward the end of the year, but there's some discussion that by the time we get into spring practice, because it's a no-contact deal for quarterbacks, that Chris may be a full participant in spring practice. And so now all of a sudden, your needs are maybe not quite as emergent. But again, if Will gets hurt, you're having to put a true freshman out there. And so I think getting a veteran guy to come in as a backup is probably the right way to go. I think we'd all probably agree with that. And Will understands the team concept. Will doesn't mind competition. Will's not going to be threatened or challenged because you're bringing another quarterback because Will understands the game of football. And I don't care if you go out and you're getting the starter from Northwestern State or from Stephen F. Austin. You get somebody like that and say, hey, listen, you could be a snap away from being the starter here. Yes, we have an established starter. Yes, we have Will Rogers, the most prolific passer in school history. But behind him, all we have is a true freshman. We need a guy. You can come in and compete for the job. It's a brand new offense. You might beat Will out. I don't expect that. But if I'm telling a recruit that, I mean it. I mean, hey, the best guy's going to play. And you could say, you know what, Will was the best fit for the air raid. Maybe he's not the best fit for the scheme. We'll see. But I think you can get a guy, and I don't care if it's a guy that was a backup somewhere else. You've got to have a guy with some college-level experience between Parson and Will Rogers. And you know what, maybe I'm completely wrong about that. I just don't believe that. I think you've got to have a guy. You listen, Jake Weir is here, of course, walk-on from Tupelo. Very competitive guy, for sure. He's a great walk-on. And we just added a commitment from Vic Sutton. It's a guy that's got a lot of Division I offers, and he got injured as a junior and kind of played through some of that. He's not fully recovered. But, again, that's another freshman, though, right? So I think you got to go out and get a guy. Again, whether he's a walk-on or a scholarship guy, I think you have to get a veteran quarterback to come in here, whether it be the spring or whatever. I think you've got to have somebody. Because what happens if Will Rogers throws the ball away out of bounds and somebody hits him and he gets injured? You got to miss a couple of weeks. What are you going to do? Or he's done for the year. What are you going to do? In my opinion, my estimation, what's best for the program is for us to have that guy. Again, maybe he's not as good as Will Rogers. But you've got to get somebody that can be serviceable as a game manager, at the very least. I believe our needs are met at most other positions, but I'm told that we won't turn down a difference maker really at any position if we can get them. Anybody that makes us a better football team, we're going to entertain that, as we should. Before the coaching change, there was talk we had to have another receiver, and with Xavion going in the portal and Ra going in the portal, and then now Tulu. I mean, you've had 3 of your receivers from last year that you're counting on go in the portal, and Ra now's going to Georgia. Back-to-back national champions. No chance of him coming back, and nor should he, right? But I think some other people have realized, too, that maybe they didn't command that same level of attention. Maybe they don't have that same level of ability. But we're not going to need as many receivers. So maybe with this change in scheme, we don't prioritize that. But if you get a difference maker, you got to take them. I think if you could get a transfer portal running back, maybe you entertain that. I don't know that it's a need, though. Again, if you can get a difference maker, you got to take them. But with Jeffrey Pittman coming in, Simeon Price coming back, Woody coming back, I feel like that you probably have got a pretty good stable there. How many of those guys are going to get carries in a football game, right? And Jeffrey Pittman, of course, there's always an adjustment coming from junior college. But I feel like, he's going to be on the, basically, as far as a learning standpoint, day one with him is day one for everybody else learning a new offense. Jeffrey Pittman can play. You guys, you haven't heard the name a lot, and his commitment kind of flew under the radar a lot. Jeff can play. That kid's really good. He absolutely is. From down there at Taylorsville, where they grow him pretty strong down on the farm down there. I think you can feel good about the direction of things. But again, if you get a difference maker, you take him. But you got to get some tight ends. You absolutely have to. That's a big component of this offense. They like to do some play action stuff, some misdirection, and dump it off to the tight end out there in space and move the chains. We've got some guys, of course, that are kind of hybrid guys, kind of tweeners. But you've got to go out and get a guy that's a true bona fide tight end. And maybe it's Goody from Georgia. Maybe it is. I mean, the last guy we got from Georgia, Justin Robertson, turned out to be pretty good, right? I mean, I even maybe let Justin host him on the official visit this weekend, right? They'll have a lot in common, probably glad to see each other. And Justin's a guy that I think is probably going to be the primary guy this year. You saw what he did down the stretch, ends up being the MVP of the ReliaQuest Bowl. Guy's really starting to come into his own. So you use the resources you have. But as far as defense goes, I mean, hey, if a rush in comes along, a guy that's the relentless pass rusher, you got to take him, right? But at this point, the depth of the talent pool in the transfer portal is not what it was a couple of weeks ago, because now we're up against enrollment dates, right? And there are some people out there that maybe their options aren't quite what they thought they were. They might be willing to go ahead and make a change. And that's the thing, too, when you think about this portal stuff, too. A lot of people go in thinking they're going to be Joe Burrow. Okay, I've been a backup at Ohio State. I can't get on the field. I'm going to go to LSU, and I'm going to win a Heisman Trophy and a national championship. That's the exception rather than the rule, right? Because there are a lot of people forget there were thousands of players last year that went into the portal that are still in the portal. They're kind of in college football purgatory. What are you going to do? There's nothing you can do. If people don't want you, they don't want you. And so a lot of people go in thinking, hey, well, I'll go in the portal and then Alabama will sign me. I mean, Georgia just won a national championship, and they took, one kid in portal? I think that's right, one. The teams that are managing their rosters exceptionally well and developing players, they're going to kind of plug and play when they have an immediate need. They're not going to live off the portal. Some other people are chosen to do that, and we'll see how that works out. But a lot of these student athletes go into this because there are people in their ears telling them, oh, well, you can get this and you can get that and you can get this. I mean, guys, we're looking at this story now that The Athletic has written, and what a wild story this thing has been. We talked about this from the beginning, when all this craziness happened with Miami, with Jaden Rashada was supposedly going to Miami for $10 million, and then there was this $13 million deal for him to go to Florida, and now he's not enrolling because they don't have the money to pay him. And why would you pay him that lump sum up front anyway? Doesn't make any sense to me. You pay him $13 million and he tears an ACL or something happens, he has a career-ending injury, and you pay all this money and then you get nothing in return. That's why I don't think this thing is sustainable. Think about all the people they went to and said, hey, if you give us this money, we're going to be able to get this kid. And now you get him. And now you won't enroll because you don't have enough. Well, I paid my part of the freight. So how do you make that right with the donor? It's amazing. And there's a lot of stories out there about it. Jaden Rashada, of course, backs off the Miami thing, commits to Florida. And now, what's he going to do? The Gator Collective supposedly was behind all this thing, and they're not able to make good on the promise. There's other stories out there, I've heard them, none to this significance, where kids have been promised one thing and then they don't deliver, so they go get in the portal. And so that's the danger of tying NIL to the portal. It's like we always think about, well, now, which is supposedly illegal. And that's the thing that I always say, to enforce the rules. And we've always established that you can't use NIL as part of a recruiting incentive. People do. But the reality of it is that there's some of these kids that are wising up and realizing they're getting sold a bill of goods. And now you've got this great big story involving this 5-star quarterback that picked one 8-figure deal over another, and now he's locked in with a national letter of intent, and he's not getting his money. So what's he going to do? Get in the portal? Go ahead and use his one-time transfer exception before he even sets foot on campus? It's amazing to see how this is all unfolding. But there are some other kids out there, I can tell you, that people have not come through. And that's the thing with all this too. It's become so shady. And there are other kids out there too that they agree to one deal, and then all of a sudden they find out that somebody else may have a better deal. So, well, I know we agreed to this, but I found this out, so I need more money. But the days of people, by and large, playing for the love of a university or a fan base or a state, I mean, those days in the minds of many people are over. And so Mississippi State has to find a way to navigate through all this. And I have a lot of confidence in the people that are involved in our leadership and our decision-making processes. But it's a dangerous time. It makes it difficult to really enjoy college football. It really does. Now, tonight I'm going to watch Dak play. And hopefully they can win a ball game and we can kind of move forward in playoffs. I'm a Steelers fan. We didn't make the playoffs this year, but I'm a Dak fan too. So I root for our guys in the league, and sometimes when they play against each other, it's kind of a conflict. But I'm looking forward to watching the ball game tonight. I hope you guys do too. And hopefully Dak can go down there and get a win in Tampa, which I think is stupid. The Cowboys won 4 more games and have to go on the road. And people are like, well, it's the rules. Well, maybe that rule needs to be changed. An 8-8 team shouldn't be hosting a playoff game. Just my opinion. Just my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. That's how I feel, though. All right, listen, if you haven't done so, go to dogpilethebook.com. You can get all my sports books there. That's Flim Flam, Alpha Dog, Stark Villains, and Dogpile. And if you're looking for Bloomsville Oleander, we sold a bunch of those at Christmas. You can find that at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, BooksMillion.com, or your local bookstore can order it for you through Ingram if you want to give them the business. If you're looking for Stark Villains gear, go to StarkVillains.com. You get T-shirts and hoodies in a variety of colors and styles, and they'll ship those bad boys right out to you. If you're not a member of JeansPage.com, I encourage you to be one. We had a record month in December, the most successful month in the history of this website. And it beat the previous record, which was November. It's like we're trending in the right direction, right? And so doing really well. And thanks to all of our great members for being a part of our family over there at JeansPage.com. Sometimes it gets a little bit contentious. It does. Sometimes there's some people that get a little smug and smart alecky, and that's just talking about the staff, right? You talk capital one, capital E. Anyway, let's get out of here today. Thanks so much for your support at the Boneyard. Again, I'm sorry I'm late doing this. Had a lot going on. But again, Monday and Wednesday and Friday show this week. And again, Friday's show will be recorded Thursday night. So when you get up on Friday, you'll be able to enjoy that early in the day. But until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.